So I wanted to talk a little bit about how I think open source is a multiplier. I've been doing open source for about 15 years. I came from like other collaborative communities, so I'm actually like really collaboration first instead of software first. This is how you can reach me. And a little bit about this picture. One of the things that's been really fun about getting to know the Python community even better, I've just been the executive director there for a couple of months, is how much stuff people are doing with Python that is super cool. So this is an image of the International Space Station going over Melbourne. So I don't know if you know this, the International Space Station goes around the Earth every 90 minutes. So there is a fellow named Giles McCullen who has a video that teaches you how to look for the International Space Station. It's like 15 minutes. You could go from being an absolute beginner and then instantly go to like, hey, I can look for the space station in the sky, take pictures of it. As a school teacher, you could show kids how to do this. Then they could take that knowledge and use it to map anything or look at any kind of database with any kind of reasonable API. And that's sort of the power of Python, is you could go from like this morning, like, what's Python, to this afternoon, like, cool, I'm taking pictures of the International Space Station over my house, which I think is super awesome. So open source, in my mind, is a multiplier in a couple of different ways. A time multiplier, sure. This is probably the best known. Everyone's probably heard the many eyes, shallow bugs metaphor, right? I don't know why we decided to market bugs first. But it does really highlight the transparency that I think is part of the open source community. So, and you know, obviously, like having other people look at bugs and help you find stuff and suggest patches is a time saver. Also, people will kick the tires on your code, tell you where it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. If you're lucky, maybe they'll translate it into different languages, set it up for use in different countries, in different fields, in different places that you never thought your code could go, which is really exciting. You can also take something that was originally intended for another purpose and use it somewhere else. So like maybe you wrote a database and you thought it was going to be for sales, and someone else is going to use it for a dating website or to run their veterinarian's office, which is really awesome. Like you wrote something, you didn't necessarily want to help the whole world of dogs, but you accidentally did because you made it open source. The other thing that I think also is kind of a time multiplier is that you don't have to work on each piece yourself. Everyone can work on the piece that's interesting to them, and then we maintain some collective resources so that we can just get on with our lives and not have to have like our own editor, our own database, our own calendar program, our own email program. We get to maintain all that stuff in common and then work on the thing that's really, really interesting to us. And so in addition to a time multiplier, I think becoming sort of an open source practitioner, open source is also a skill multiplier. And what I mean by that is that when you start using a tool chain and then you go to another job, you can take it with you. You can take all of it with you. Like you can take your IDE, you can take your programming language, but you also take your knowledge of the community and how the norms are there, how you get things done, like who actually can make things happen, who can actually fix things, where the right place to go for answers is, all of that stuff. You become a person that has like the same colleagues across 5 different jobs, and you're using the same tool chain. This means you don't have to spend time relearning new stuff every time you want to set your mind to a different task. So open everything. And Python is very much about this. It's very modular. You can use everything across everywhere. And it's like the number of things that people use Python is amazing. I continue to find new things, which is exciting. This is a chicken. In case you didn't know, I don't see them very often. I live in the city. But one of the things you can use Python for is chicken wrangling. I don't know if you know this, but chickens are not very smart. And they really like to be outside. But they really can't be outside at night because something else will eat them, something smarter, which is a low bar. But they want to be outside very early. As soon as the sun comes up, they want to be outside. You may not want to be outside as soon as the sun comes up, but your chickens do. So you can build an automatic chicken door with a Raspberry Pi and some Python that lets your chickens out at the crack of dawn. The chickens are happy, you're in bed sleeping, you're happy, everyone is happy. This is just like kind of like what can you do? Where can you take these skills that you have? And my friend Adam Monson did this with his daughter. So like he's teaching his kids to use Python to take care of their chickens. Maybe you could use Python to do less work, like automate stuff. Maybe you'll build an engine so you don't have to go to the store anymore. You can just 3D print something out at your house and then recycle it when you're done. And then you can spend all that extra time in a hammock, which is, that's the dream, right? So in addition to being a time multiplier and a skill multiplier, and who doesn't want more time and more skill, it's also an innovation multiplier. So this is a picture, of course, I think everyone's probably seen this from the Webb telescope. So space is extremely empty. There's like a lot of nothing out there, but this is obviously a picture of something, right? They took the images from the Webb telescope and they used Python to break down all that nothing so that we could look at it instead of spending hundreds and hundreds of human hours looking at the nothingness of space. I don't know about your career goals, but looking at the nothingness of space for hundreds and hundreds of hours is not on my list. But we could use these tools to do other things where there's a lot of dead space. Maybe like bird migration or snow crabs, where did they go? There's a lot of empty ocean out there also. So the idea is that we build these tools for like taking data, automating it, giving us just the parts we need, and then we can go and take them somewhere else. So, cyberspace. We talked a lot about the metaverse. I was here all day yesterday. When I was younger, I really thought this was going to be, we were going to have like a virtual office. I don't know why we were going to recreate very boring offices, but that's what I thought we were going to do. And there would be like nano weapons. I hope we actually don't do the nano weapons part or the renting out your childhood memories for storage. Maybe a little more Animal Crossing, a little less nano weapons. But like there is so much that we could do. So we have the seeds of like all these ideas, the virtual environment. But how do we go beyond, like beyond, right? And like I think of all the things that we could do. Like, we could build stuff so that kids could tell their own stories instead of us telling stories to them. We could build things so that people with Alzheimer's would have a place to go that would make them feel comfortable. Royal mentioned PTSD, or I think of folks having a panic attack and, being able to go to a place where they're like, finally, I feel calm. So there's so many things that we could do with a virtual environment, and it's going to involve being connected to people who are working in those spaces already. So is there anyone here who's a pediatrician? No? Archaeologist? Yeah, one. Oh, that's cool. Zoologist? Time traveler? You gotta ask, right? Because like, yes, one, finally, time travel. But I'm picturing this world where maybe in like 5 or 10 years at an event like this where we're talking about virtual environments, we're like, well, of course there's pediatricians here. Of course there's archaeologists here. Of course there's zoologists here. And they're gonna tell us where those crabs went. So that's like, but we can't do that if like we keep all of the tech and the opportunities to participate in a walled garden. So the interoperability, the open source, the modularity, documentation, making sure that these communities remain welcoming is super key for that. So I'm not a future caster, and in fact, knowing for sure what's actually going to happen doesn't really seem that much fun. I don't know if any of you are watching the Foundation series or have read those books. It didn't really seem that fun to be Harry Seldon. But that doesn't mean that, like, because it kind of is like, it takes the magic out of it. Like, you get to be in charge of what happens. But if you already know what's going to happen, then that's not as fun. So finally, I think open source is a possibility multiplier. And that means that we're going to build things and we're going to offer them to the next generation. And we're going to make sure that they're able to be builders and healers and whatever else we need instead of just consumers. So, and they'll be able to skip from field to field. Like, we're back to chickens again. But they were scarier apparently earlier on. I wasn't here for it. None of us were here for it. But I'm picturing this world where you could go from, studying dinosaurs to like designing prosthetics to, crunching the data to cure cancer, and you're using the same constellation of tools. Like, you don't have to, if you wake up one day and you're like, all right, I'm sick of working on cancer, it's depressing, I want to design fashion prosthetics and do something totally different. You don't have to like change what you're doing. The tools are all still there. And maybe you know everyone that is already doing that work because we're all sharing everything. So, how many of you thought we were going to have flying cars? A couple, okay. So the Jetsons, they made it seem like the future was going to be great. One, we were going to have flying cars. I think the 3D models for flying cars have some work to be done. We're still struggling with 2D models, like flat cars, right? They're still hitting dumpsters and causing fires. But I think we inherited a future with some more complicated problems than what planet we're going to vacation on, or what happens when the kids come up with a very annoying song. And so, it's going to take a more complex approach. So, are we gonna go visit alternate universes? I don't know. The physics is a little beyond. But what I do think is that we're going to be building those alternate universes here. And we're not going to be able to do it unless we share. We're not going to be able to do it unless we're really excited to collaborate. We're not going to be able to do it unless we keep our communities welcoming and our stuff well documented. So I hope that's what we'll do. And thank you for your time. It's great to be here.